This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
And welcome, everybody, to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host for the day, Andrew Cooperrider, stepping in, covering the show. Fantastic show for you here. But before I dig down into it, please, if you are listening to the conversation we're going to be having today, we're going to be talking about the Utes, the young people. I've got a very special guest on that. But if you want to join into the conversation, feel free to text 502-571-0970. Once again, that's 502-571-0970. And if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, that Andrew Cooperrider, he sounds like a swell fella. I want to hear more. Well, you can tune in right here on 970 Sundays at 6 p.m. to the Andrew Cooperrider Show. And if you want to watch me a little bit more, you can watch on WBNA Wednesdays at 11. And finally, and my final announcement here as we do the preamble, if you want to help keep the lights on, you can go ahead and text 53555. Once again, that's 53555, and text KY Voice. But without further ado, let's dig down into it. So I'm joined here by Devin McVeigh. Devin, I've known you for a few years. You're the Kentucky field manager for Young Americans for Liberty. For those who are unaware of what this organization is, what do you guys do, real quick? What do you do?
Yeah, I say quick, or you say quick, but we'll see. Young Americans for Liberty started out of the Ron Paul for President campaign back in 2008 and 2012, Students for Ron. And then there was so much enthusiasm, so much excitement after those presidential campaigns. It was like, we can't let this flame die out. And so our founder, Jeff Frazee, kept going with Young Americans for Liberty. Started out as just college kids that love liberty and freedom and wanted to talk about it. Then we started getting into, well, we actually need to make a change for freedom and liberty. And so now these college kids are learning how to make changes on their college campuses, getting free speech policies on college campuses. And then in the legislature, we're working on state-level policies that will make states like Kentucky a more free state.
So one of the things, I make this argument all the time, because we've seen some discussion. I've seen some older generation Republicans, by definition, in the boomer age range. I'm not saying boomer is a pejorative. It's not a negative thing that you're a baby boomer generation, but the boomer range. I've been seeing some talk about kind of this libertarian-esque thought process, that Ron Paul thought process that you just mentioned, Young Americans for Liberty was kind of founded on, as being kind of negative, or kind of pushing aside some of those things, thinking of people like Rand Paul, Ron's son, our Kentucky senator, and of course Thomas Massie, congressman there out of the 4th District. And there's been some pushback of saying, look, I don't like these libertarian principles. Now, one of my arguments back has been much the same way that the radical kind of communistic type, Democrat socialist belief system of people like AOC and Bernie Sanders really motivates the youth, the college campuses, and really that takes hold. I think that more libertarian type belief thought process is the same counterculture, punk, rock, conservative, right side of the aisle kind of belief system that draws kids into the Republican Party. Would you agree with that? How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, well, I'll say, I saw an article the other day that really showed that the Republican Party, ideologically, the people that align with Republicans, much wider range in beliefs compared to the Democrats. Now, with liberty policy, that maybe people would call that radical or punk, but I say you're letting people live their lives, and it's the motto: don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. If that's radical, then I'm fine with being radical.
Well, that does sound pretty radical. Let me tell you what. Now, I mean, you can get into some radical beliefs on that side. I know, I know my listeners probably aren't that interested, but there's belief thought processes like anarcho-capitalism and those kinds of thoughts that sometimes go a little far. I think I would describe more of it as a minarchist type belief system. You want your governments hyper local. You want your government involvement to be limited to law enforcement and roads, basically, and kind of staying away from trying to legislate and do the handouts and things like that to businesses and trying to get involved in the free market. When you look at Kentucky policies, what are some of the things that you have been, your organization or you all been looking at, trying to change, trying to make a difference on, that you guys take big issue with?
Yeah, I mean, Kentucky, fairly recently, Republican-red state in my lifetime that it's became a majority Republican. And so there are a lot of issues that still need fixed. And I would say that there's a lot of, air quotes, Republicans in the legislature that are still scared of Republican policy. But
why do you think that is? And define Republican policy real quick.
Well,
what are they afraid of?
I would say liberty policy. Maybe that's a better way to describe it. But
what's some examples?
Lowering or eliminating taxes.
Okay.
Your gun rights. These are things.
Has there been any
School choice.
legislation recently that you think you've gotten a lot of pushback on that should be easy Republican legislation in the state?
Well, I'll tell you, in 2025, Representative Steve Doan proposed a bill that would eliminate the income tax.
Okay.
Now
Sounds good.
That should be a Republican thing, right? For people that might not know, our current system is based off of how much money the state brings in and how much they save. And then if they hit all of these arbitrary metrics, then maybe they're allowed to reduce the income tax by 0.5%. Mm-hmm. And they've done that a couple times, but they've missed the mark a couple times. So we believe that we should do away with these arbitrary figures and say, let's reduce it by 1% every year until we're at zero. Tax is a negative thing. Your tax. We have a sin tax. A sin tax is meant to stop people from smoking cigarettes or drinking alcohol, and the whole push for that is saying these things are bad, so we're going to tax them to make people not want to do them. Well, what does that say about our income? If you're taxing somebody's income, then you're saying that we don't actually value your work, and we're going to take your money off the top before you can even have any of it. And then when Steve Doan proposed that amendment, the leadership in the House did some parliamentary gymnastics and shot it down before it could even have a vote.
Because they didn't want it to hit the floor, because then you have now Republicans, if they voted against it,
right,
would be voting against getting rid of the income tax. That creates an attack line with campaigning. But the argument back against allowing we're just going to do 1%, and this is the argument I've heard. Now, I've got my own pushback against this argument, but I'd be curious to hear yours, which is, look, we can't afford that. We need to cut smartly. We need to make sure we're not putting ourselves in a position where the government can't make its budgets, because, of course, we have a balanced budget here in Kentucky, which means every dollar we spend, we've got to tax. So the argument is we just can't afford to cut it. We have to do it this way with this percentage procedure in order to achieve a system that doesn't blow apart, where the state doesn't go bankrupt. What's your argument back to those people who'd say such words?
Yeah, and I've heard that one specifically from some legislators that are higher up in the power chain.
Yeah.
But
me too.
The answer is we have to be serious about being conservative and actually cutting spending.
Yeah.
We can't just talk about, we're going to bring in the revenue to make up for the cut. That's not cutting anything. That's just replacing. It's pretty much a tax swap.
Right.
So, sure, we might not cut the income tax because we can't afford it, but that's because you're still spending on pet projects and Andy Bashir level cronyism.
Yeah, I actually posted today on my social media. So for those of you listening, head over. You can follow me on the socials, X at KY Cooper Writer, and then on Facebook, just search Andrew Cooper Writer. I don't know what my handle is there, but it's at KY Cooper Writer on X. And I had posted about this today. I took a look at the 2016 budget year. So the way it works in Kentucky, we budget for 2 years at a time, and it's even number of years, and we'll budget for the next 2 fiscal years. And 2016 is an important time frame to look at because it would have been the last time we were making a budget, and Democrats had control of the Kentucky State House. Since then, Republicans have had control of both the House and the Senate, with now having 80% of those seats veto-proof majorities in both chambers. And I looked at what Democrats were spending and adjusted it for inflation, and our overall budget, this includes the general fund, the federal fund, all the monies we spend, all the different, the gas tax, all those things all combined and adjusted for inflation, Republicans are spending 40% more now than they were in 2016. Their 2-year budget in 2016 was right around, adjusted for inflation, I believe, right around $96 billion or so, somewhere right around there. And right now, their last budget that they just did in 2024 was $128 billion was the all-in amount. So that's adjusted for inflation. I was talking about that $90 billion. So that's a pretty huge increase. So yeah, I would agree with the statement of you're not cutting, you are replacing taxes, but you're still spending at these above Democrat levels. And I don't know, I just remember in 2016 when I was voting for Republicans, they were promising to cut spending and be more in control than Democrats were. I don't ever remember them running on the platform of we should spend more money than the Democrats. That's just me. But well, when we get back, we'll start digging into a little bit more about state policy, electoral politics too, as well, some elections going on around the state. Curious to hear what the youth organizations have to say about it. Always interested to hear from you. As always, if you want to listen to the Andrew Cooper Show, you can listen to it right here, Sundays at 6 p.m. But we'll see you here in a few short minutes.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And you're back here with Andrew Cooper, your host for the day. I'm here talking with Mr. McVeigh. Sorry, there's a mouthful of title here. Mr. McVeigh, the state field director for Young Americans for Liberty, a liberty conservative organization that advocates for taxing policies that are conservative and tax less, and also spending policies and Second Amendment issues too as well, freedom of speech, all those important things. As we dig into it, if you want to join into the conversation with us, you can go ahead and text us at 502-571-0970. Once again, that's 502-571-0970. So, taxing, let me tell you a story. Okay, so I just bought a car recently off of, I don't know, online somewhere, some auction site or something. I don't know. But I paid like $600 for it. And I go in, I actually paid like $2,000 for it. And I go in to pay my car tax. Now, the way that a capitalist society is supposed to work is the value of something is based upon what the market says it's worth. And for me, in an auction setting, objectively speaking, whatever I paid for that vehicle is 100% what it's worth. There was literally an auction, a public auction for it. And yet when I walked in, they put the truck's value at like 2 times what I paid for it at an auction. What can we do about these car taxing and everything else? What's going on here?
Yeah, so the car tax is actually something that I didn't realize every state didn't have. I lived in Texas for a year and registered a car in Texas, and I was like, where's this like arbitrary fee for my vehicle? Not every state has it. And so Kentucky is dealing with this issue where every single year you're paying a tax on a car that you paid a tax on to buy, and then you're paying tax on gas every time you fill it up, and all for the roads is what they say. And I'm sure that right now, while somebody's listening, they just hit a pothole that's been there for 4 years. So we've got to do away with these car taxes. It's just a new fun way for the government to milk money out of you.
Well, and so the argument is about the roads, but to be clear, the road fund is only funded by the gas tax at the pump. Mm-hmm. The vehicle registration and property tax you get on your vehicle, is that set? Does it have to be spent on the roads, or can it be spent anywhere?
Well, it's fun little cup and ball game. The money goes to the county, okay. And that's one of the reasons why it's going to be really hard to get rid of it, is because when these county clerks get money, they get power, and so they don't want to do away with that. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to really say where the money goes. Some of it probably goes to roads or bridges, and some of it's not tracked and probably in somebody's pocket. So for Young Americans for Liberty, right, some people listening may say, look, you're against the income tax, you're against car tax, I'm assuming you're against property tax. You don't want to be taxed, period. Let's just call it what it is. You want the government to fall apart. You want no money to be spent at all. You want us to live like cavemen. What actually is an acceptable taxing policy for Young Americans for Liberty? You sound like dozens of politicians right now. It's almost like I've heard them talk. Almost like you ran as one. I know. Well, I wasn't that one. No, I'm playing with you, Andrew. So I think a fair argument would be a consumption tax. So a sales tax. That is a voluntary exchange where you're buying a car, and the day that you buy the car, you pay the sales tax. That allows people to determine how much money they're spending, and it makes it to where if people can't afford luxuries, then they're saving extra money on what they buy. Whereas somebody that's going out and buying a boat and a car and a trailer and everything else, they're being taxed a fair amount. So historically speaking, as you all have pushed for different pieces of legislation as far as it goes, what has been a piece of legislation you have fought tooth and nail for that should be an easy conservative win that for whatever reason never seems to get passed and you just can't get any interest in it? What do you guys got? Being a youth organization, the Kentucky constitutional carry is a big one. Sure. So constitutional carry meaning that if you can legally own the gun, you can carry it without a permit, concealed or open. And currently in Kentucky, it's 21 years old, but you can legally own a gun before that. So it makes sense to be 18. When you're an adult, you should be allowed to carry.
Sure.
And so we've pushed for years for cleaning up Kentucky's constitutional carry laws, and it made it through the Senate actually this year in 2025 with 4 Republicans voting against it, may I note. But then the House didn't take it up, just let it die. And that's pretty common. The Kentucky House is very good at killing good legislation.
Why do you think they kill it? Why don't they like it?
They're cowards.
Who are they afraid of?
That's a good question. Lobbyists, maybe. Donors. It's hard to say because, like you said in a previous segment, veto-proof majority.
Yeah, 80%. Like, we can afford to lose a few even. If getting conservative things done causes us to lose 5 seats in the House, a seat or 2 in the Senate, like, we can easily afford that if it means we're able to get done conservative work.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm always so curious. How does good legislation like that, conservative, easy wins for Republicans? I mean, this is red meat. Second Amendment votes, that's red meat for Republicans, red meat for the base. Mm-hmm. Why does it fail?
It's a mystery to me, too, honestly. And you see this in almost every red state. They get these easy wins that you would think donors would love. You'll get new donors for it. But then they just let it die. And I believe it's to protect those fellow, air quotes, Republicans that just so happen to have an R next to their name, but they're not actually conservative in the slightest.
Because, I mean, you see it nationally.
Mm-hmm.
We saw this fight over the one big beautiful bill kind of coming down. And if everyone's honest, it was definitely not a perfect piece of legislation. But then you sit there and you say, okay, why is it that we have to have in some of these spending provisions without being able to pass it otherwise if we only need Republican votes? Who are the Republicans holding this up? And so often we don't hear people naming names. So that way, if you say, look, this is the best we can get passed right now, and that became the argument. And I understand that argument. Look, we got to get this tax, the Trump tax cuts extended out indefinitely. We've got to get these things handled. I understand that 100%. And the response was, this is the bill that we need in order to get it done. So you just have to eat the bad stuff. Mm. But who's demanding the bad stuff?
Yeah, it's the same people that are demanding the bad stuff to be able to pass bills like that are getting good bills killed. And that is your weak-kneed rhinos. That term is thrown around a lot, but there are a lot of rhinos in the state that are being protected by leadership. That way they can keep that seat.
Yeah, it's always so curious to me to see some of that thought process. I think also, too, having in our leadership within the legislature people from purple districts, mm-hmm. where they're controlling what legislation comes to the floor simply because they themselves are worried about their own seat, mm-hmm. is, I think, a problem. Like, when we have this many Republicans, this many conservatives in the legislature, having purple district people in leadership, I think, is a real liability to getting conservative things done, because they're worried about how their own votes would end up working out, and they're worried about holding on to their own seat. Well, coming up after this, we'll start discussing the 6th District congressional race, the Senate race going on, and what the youths are saying about everything going into those races. We'll have that here back in a few minutes. As always, if you like listening to me talk and host this show, you can tune into the Andrew Cooper Show right here on 970, Sundays at 6 p.m., but we'll be back in a few short minutes.
back to Kentucky's Voice Radio online at kyvoice.org.
And you're back here on Kentucky's Voice. Andrew Cooperrider here with Devin McVeigh. We're digging into the youths, what the youths are thinking in Kentucky here in this segment, talking about the Senate race and that important 6th congressional district race. If you want to join into the conversation, feel free to text 502-571-0970. Once again, that is 502-571-0970. Now, the young Republicans out there that are looking at what's going on in the Senate race, are looking at what's going on in the 6th district congressional race, they're looking at what's going on in the 4th district. A lot of drama between Thomas Massie and Trump and so on and so forth. What do you think the youths that are going to turn out and vote, and more importantly, and I think people miss this, the young Republicans, the young conservative voters are the volunteers on these campaigns. They're the people who get involved with these campaigns. They knock on doors for them. They're the workhorses for them. And also really the young voters turning out for Trump really pushed him over the edge. He overperformed well with the younger voters. And so for those who want to say they don't matter, it doesn't matter what the youngsters want, they're not paying attention to one, how electoral politics is working right now and what Trump did win on. So what is the general feeling you're getting from him?
Yeah, so saw a poll yesterday that had, back in February, Trump's approval ratings with 18 to 29-year-olds was sitting at 55% approval.
Yeah, it's a YouGov poll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as of July, he's down to 28% approval with that same age group. And I think a lot of people in my age group, in this young Republican age group, they're getting disenfranchised and they're becoming apathetic, and it all stems from being lied to over and over again. It's already hard to be in politics when you're this young because you're 18 years old, you're going to school, and then right after school you're trying to get your first big boy job and maybe get married and things like that. So it's already hard to be involved. And then when your involvement includes just lies time and time again, it's very easy to say, I'm going to wash my hands of this and I don't want to do it anymore. And that will hurt come election time because, the 65-year-old average voter, they're only going to be voting for so much longer. It's important to engage these 18 to 29-year-olds now. That way, they know that you care and that you're actually working for them, and then you have to double down on that and actually do what you say once you're in office.
So when you look at let's just go with the Senate race right now, and you look at the players in it, right? Obviously, you're not going to endorse anyone. You're not going to, this may be even your personal opinion and not the opinion of Make Liberty, of Young Americans for Liberty. But when you look at these candidates, let's go through them right now. So we got our major candidates right now are Nate Morris, Andy Barr, and Daniel Cameron, right? Let's start with Daniel Cameron. What do you think people are saying about him out there, the youths?
There's been some talk. I've heard people that like Daniel Cameron, people that despise him, and he obviously has a history in politics, and so a lot of people are just looking back at his record as AG and trying to make decisions based off of what you know. This kind of stems back to in politics now and in media. It's hard to decipher what's real and what's not, what you can trust and what you have to ignore. And so the best way to fall back and know what you're looking at is based off of their record.
And so when is the feeling from the younger voters that will turn out to vote in the primary, that will, or do you think they're saying, look, I don't know if I want to vote for Daniel Cameron, or are they uneasy with him? How are they feeling?
I think this goes for all of them, all of these major candidates. Nobody's excited. I've not talked to any individual that is like, oh man, Devin, I can't wait for this Senate race. True.
I mean, I'm every conversation where people ask me about how I feel, it is a feeling of like, well,
yeah, it's just complete
they're
apathy.
there.
yeah, and it's what we need. What Kentucky needs is more firebrands like Rand Paul, Thomas Massie, these people that are actually going to do what they say. And I don't see anybody like that in the Senate race.
But right now, Thomas Massie, Rand Paul, I'm seeing a lot of, and this is a big generational gap, honestly, seeing it play out online, where you have the boomer generation, once again, not a pejorative, just a descriptor. You get the boomer generation that is showing a lot of hate towards Rand Paul, Thomas Massie. I'm seeing things like they're just as bad as McConnell, they're rhinos, they're nothing but a bunch of Democrats, they need to both be gone. And then I'm seeing the non-boomer voting crowd with a different opinion on that divide. What do you think is driving that divide, that split?
This is something that Young Americans for Liberty pushes a lot, and it's principle over party. And I think this is something that a lot of young people get. That maybe some of the older crowd
Are you saying
doesn't.
Boomers aren't
I'm
principled?
saying that. I'm saying that. Andrew's getting me canceled. What I'm saying is, young people are tired of being lied to, and they care about the issues. And it's not about a red team, blue team, gold team. It's none of that. It's you ran on X, Y, and Z, and you got elected, and I expect you to stand up for X, Y, and Z. And when you actually do that, then you get the loyalty and the support from those young people time and time again. Whereas maybe the older crowd is like, well, it is a team of red shirt, blue shirt, and what's going on? You have to be with the red team, otherwise you're on the blue team.
Interesting. So going back to our talk, though, about the Senate candidates, and you mentioned a firebrand. I know certainly Nate Morris is trying to position himself as a firebrand. What has been the feeling you've gotten from people on that campaign? Because you're dealing, to be clear, as people wonder why I'm asking you about the people you talk to, your daily job is to go to college campuses, talk with young conservative voters, recruit them to get involved, recruit them to volunteer, recruit them to knock on doors about policies. So that's why I'm asking you, when you're out there talking to and having this conversation with the young voters, what are they saying about Nate Morris?
Yeah, I've heard the outsider thrown around, which could be a good thing if you're trying to act like you're Trump 2.0 or whatever. But then you look at his business record. This all goes back to you can say one thing, but what have you done? These things that have came out about the way he ran his business during COVID and his donation history. These are all tangible things that people are not happy about. And throwing a trash truck on your logo is not going to help you win votes. It's just it's not. And
finally, we have Andy Barr. He's also one of the major candidates. What are you hearing about him?
Look at vote history. I've personally not heard a good thing about him. Just take a look at voting history. When you've been in Congress that long, your actions speak for themselves.
And so if you had to give a piece, you kind of mentioned some of the advice earlier as you're talking about what are you focusing on. If you're giving out advice to one of those three, and obviously there's some other candidates that aren't as talked about in the media, people like Michael Ferris and some of these other people. What do you say to people who want to go and support those types of candidates in the election that people view as having a harder time winning and pulling off the attention and as such?
Oh, like what do I say to the young people about going to support those people? Do it. I think it's principle over party. So if you think that person aligns with what you care about and you are going to get value out of that, then do it. It actually, obviously winning and losing is the lifeblood of a politician, but for an activist, you should be pushing for what you believe in, not settling for one person because you think they're going to win and you're just going to ride those coattails. It's kind of the same thing with Ron Paul. Ron Paul lost in 2008 and 2012, and that was the end of his political career. But there are now grassroots activists across the nation that are still fighting because of that. And you, as a young person, can be that next activist.
So what's your advice to those running for the Senate, right? What would you tell them? What do they need to do to win over your group of voters?
Loosen the tie. Be honest with the people. And if you've made bad votes or taken actions that don't align with the party, be honest about that and talk about how you're going to actually rectify it. Young people care about the results, not about these empty beating around the bush promises that happen on the campaign trail.
Switching now over to the 4th district real quick, the Massie. There's still not a candidate per se there that's been picked as the MAGA candidate. How do you think that election ends up playing out?
In my opinion, it doesn't matter. Massie wins. He's proven that the endorsements and the negative ads don't work in his district because he's standing up for those principles. So run who you want to run. Doesn't matter to me. It's a waste of money. Actually, that's what makes me more mad. Is I don't really care about congressional politics, but with the amount of money that they've promised to spend against Thomas Massie,
they've already spent 1.8.
Already spent. Think of the R+1 districts that they could go and pick up and shore up the majority. It's clearly not about politics and trying to have a Republican majority. It's about not liking somebody because they vote the way that their people want them to vote.
So when you look at now that open 6th congressional seat coming out of Central Kentucky, any candidates that you think are resonating well?
Not that I've seen. I mean, it's another one of those very similar to the Senate where everybody that's announced, some of them have some good things. A lot of them are just kind of duds.
Yeah, I do hope. One thing that's let me down about not let me down, but I guess I should expect it about this electoral cycle, looking at Congress and the Senate races, especially, but these open seats is every single person who comes out, it's going to be the same exact talking point. I am the Trumpiest Trumper to have ever trumpeted Trump's name. And while I appreciate your loyalty to Trump as far as that goes, I still would like to hear what you're actually going to do. What is your original thoughts as far as that goes? But, when we get back, we'll start talking about some of the crazy things that the liberal youths are doing. I keep using youths. Somebody's seen My Cousin Vinny too many times. Anyways, the youths, the young voters, the craziness that we're seeing protesters blocking streets and roads and apparently getting run over by water trucks and all kinds of crazy things going on in Kentucky. We'll talk about what's driving that ideology when we get back. If you like what you're hearing, feel free. You can follow me on the social medias at KY Cooper Writer on X and on Facebook. Just search Cooper Writer. You can also tune into the Andrew Cooper Writer Show. You can watch it on WBNA Wednesdays at 11, and you can listen to it, separate show from this show, Sundays at 6 p.m. right here on 970. We'll be back in a few short minutes to conclude today.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And you are back here on Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host for the day, Andrew Cooper Ryder. I tell you what, if you like what you're hearing and you're like, how do I help keep this going? Well, you can actually donate to what we have going on here. You can go ahead and text 53555, 53555. Text the word KY Voice, KY Voice, to 53555 in order to figure out how to give, how to donate to what's going on here. I'm joined today by a very special guest, Devin McVeigh from Young Americans for Liberty. He's the state field director, manager guy. He's in charge of making sure that the young people in the state trend conservative, trend liberty, and get out and vote as far as that goes. So I've been getting his feedback on some different things from the youth perspective. We were talking about that 4th district race, and it was brought to my attention in the break that Donald Trump had recently truthed?
Yeah, I'll take that. Truthed.
Stated on Truth Social. Thomas Massie, the worst Republican congressman and almost guaranteed no vote each and every time, is an embarrassment to Kentucky. He's lazy, slow-moving, and totally disingenuous. A real loser! Exclamation point at the end of that. Never has anything positive to add. Looking for someone good to run against this guy, someone I can endorse and vigorously campaign for. Your reaction. Our youth reporter.
If you want somebody to vote yes for something, make it worth voting yes for. It's pretty simple, actually. He's a no vote because the bills suck. They're bad. The big beautiful bill may be decent.
Hold on. I'm told he's an obstructionist and a grandstander, and he doesn't accomplish anything.
A third-rate grandstander is what I've heard.
Democrats, though. So is there a happy medium? Is he incorrect to be standing against some of these legislation?
No, the bills that you get passed is second to the things that you're actually standing for. You can go and we see this with a lot of state level legislators. They won't pass anything red meat. They'll pass a lot of like resolutions saying that they like support the Second Amendment, but resolutions don't do anything, at least on the state level. And so, but then they go home and they say, "Oh, I've done all these great things." That is grandstanding, or voting for some sort of half measure, like every time that they vote to reduce the income tax by 0.5%.
Do you think Trump's upset over the Epstein resolution? You think that's why he's tweeting this morning?
It definitely could be.
Yesterday?
Could be.
Last evening? Why do you think he's upset about that?
I cannot speculate. I have no clue. What I will say is, isn't it odd that you run on being the most transparent president and you give out all these binders to MAGA influencers, and then a couple months later everything has disappeared, and we're all crazy for even why are we talking about Jeffrey Epstein? He died 3-4 years ago.
But maybe there is no there. I mean, he does know things we probably don't about the files, and maybe there isn't much in there. Do you think that's the case?
If there's nothing in there, then why not release it? Right? I mean, if that's everything that people
I'm
are
just
talking about.
asking you what your opinion is. I don't know.
If there's nothing in there, release it. It's pretty simple. I mean, if there are child trafficking pedophiles out there, bring them to light, because those are not the people we need in our society.
Yeah, it is troubling to me. One thing I've brought up a few times that I'm confused on is, so Pam Bondi comes out and says there's literally tens of thousands or thousands of child pornography. Now, the statement has been since then is what she meant was it was like Jeffrey Epstein's personal pornography collection. But regardless, that much child pornography, they said, oh, investigation's closed. You would think you'd be trying to figure out who made that child pornography, or arresting people for I mean, one guy didn't make 10,000 child porn
Or another
videos.
good point here is Ghislaine Maxwell is still in prison for trafficking children to no one.
Well, I think the claim is to Epstein. Just Epstein.
Really?
That's the claim. It's just
Interesting.
Epstein. And so, I mean, that's just what I've heard. And so I am interested to know, kind of getting full into it. There's a lot they're there. But I was just wanting to bring that up. Our last segment, we were talking about that, and this truthed out thing was brought to my attention. So, obviously, we were just talking about Massie. Want to get your feelings on that. Switching gears, though, real quick to, you work on these college campuses. You are battling this crazy left liberal thought process that's going on these college campuses. I mean, it's like you all, Turning Point USA does some stuff too. You guys, Turning Point USA versus literally incredibly well-funded organizations and everything. And it drives to some crazy things. I mean, I don't know if you saw this this past week. There was the shutdown of the Brent Spence Bridge that led to police having to pull protesters off, some interesting videos of them getting into altercations. And it was over a professor being out of I think, Cincinnati, being deported because he was connected to a Muslim Brotherhood organization. I believe he was Muslim. He's a very Muslim-sounding name, looks Muslim, obviously from a foreign country. And he was associated with basically terrorist-supporting organizations. That's the claim made. And then he was getting deported for it. And the protesters were arguing that he shouldn't be deported for this. And, pick and choose your battles. I guess their picked battle was fighting for a guy that they probably have pretty good evidence is associated with these pro-terrorist organizations. And then here, I guess, today, as the producer has told me, there's been an issue with a water truck running over a protester here in Kentucky, I believe. So what is going on? These people are crazy. They're literally blocking roads, getting run over, and willing to do it.
Yeah, I wish young conservatives, liberty-minded folks had the passion that these other students have. They are just like the Energizer Bunny. They're always running and doing the next liberal thing. And it's like that on every college campus across the nation, it feels like. I went to the University of Louisville as a conservative student, and it was a nightmare. It felt like you couldn't
yelled
trust.
At when you guys go to these campuses? You set up tabling events, and people come up and yell at you ever?
Oh, I've been yelled at, spit on at the University of Indiana. Spit on there. They've thrown our flyers and scribbled across our clipboards to get rid of the names of people. They for the party of peace and love. Pretty violent on these college campuses.
Why do you think what were you pushing that was making them so upset?
Second Amendment, freedom of speech, some things like that. At the University of Louisville, the closest thing we ever got to agreeing and coming together was we were pushing to get rid of the ban on pepper spray. And apparently,
what? Oh, students weren't allowed to carry pepper spray.
Students still not allowed to carry pepper spray on campus.
They're not?
No. It's fun little. It's the cup and ball game, right? You call the dean and they say, yeah, it's fine, you can have it. But the student handbook says anything, including but not limited to something that can harm you, right? Well, pepper spray by nature is meant to stop you, incapacitate you, and so. It's one of those things.
And that's so interesting that they would, because I heard, this was years ago, I heard this talking line all the time, that something like 1 in 3 college girls are sexually assaulted on campus. Now, first, that stat seemed inflated because that would mean it's more dangerous for women on our college campuses than war-torn Congo. That's a higher rate than there, right? But it's interesting that this was a conversation talking point that's so dangerous on these campuses and as part of the Me Too thing. And then they're banning even pepper spray just to protect yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said...
So obviously they allow guns then, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure, definitely. No, that's why...
That was sarcasm, for those who didn't pick up on it.
These college campuses are so dangerous. They're required... All public college campuses are required to put out crime stats every year, and you can go and look at that, and they're all bad. And it doesn't matter what part of the state or what part of the country, and it's because you're a fish in a barrel. Somebody who wants to cause harm knows that you can't protect yourself. You're there alone. probably for a lot of these college kids, first time they've ever been living on their own, and they're vulnerable. And so that's a big problem on college campuses. Pepper spray is a small piece. Obviously, we should do away with gun-free zones, but to even completely ban pepper spray is asinine.
So, rewinding for a second, though, talking about how these youths get so indoctrinated into this leftist belief where they're literally willing to throw themselves in front of vehicles. Your experience on college campuses, what is driving this? Is there particular groups that are driving it? How are they funded? What's going on there?
So I would say that it starts with the professors. You can look at, there's data out there that shows that a giant majority of professors in almost every field besides maybe business and engineering are leftists, Democrats. And I would venture to say that even some of these professors that identify as Republican conservative are probably more moderate than they are actually conservative. And so when you're, like I said, a brand new adult on your own for the first time, you're trying to find a mentor, you're trying to find somebody that's an authority on things, somebody that you can trust. And when the only people around you that are figures of authority are left-leaning, it starts to kind of bleed in to what you do. And then you're in an echo chamber. A lot of college students are more liberal, and a lot of more conservative students end up graduating high school and going into trades or something. So it all compounds on itself where these college kids are only talking to other liberals, and they're getting together and they're mad, and the anger compounds, and then now apparently you're running in front of water trucks or something.
Crazy stuff. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Andrew Cooperwriter here covering Kentucky's Voice today. I'll be back next Tuesday. I'll have on Representative Kim Holloway out of the 2nd
Way
district.
out west somewhere.
Way out west. She's so far out west, she's either 1 or 2. I think she's in the 2nd district. And she'll be joining the show to discuss. If you want to hear the Andrew Cooperwriter show more often, and if you want to hear me more often than just covering here when I do on Kentucky's Voice, well, you can check out the Andrew Cooperwriter show right here on 970, Sundays at 6 p.m., and on WBNA Wednesdays at 11. You can also follow me on social media at KY Cooperwriter, and on Facebook, just search Andrew Cooperwriter. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time.